At Granger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail. The ones who fuss, tinker, and sweat the small stuff. Because you know the tiniest thing can make the biggest difference when it comes to keeping business moving. We get it. We're the same way. Offering access to product experts to help you quickly and easily find what you need. So whatever your industry, you know you're always getting professional-grade products. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, where we talk about the continual pursuit of the section hiker.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome back to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart, and this is the podcast where you will hear stories about everyday people who, in addition to their everyday lives, make the commitment to hike long-distance trails where every section is a new beginning. Today, we have on the podcast our first guest that has section hiked the Superior Hiking Trail. She refers to that hike as her long, awesome section hike. She is a Granite Gear Groundskeeper, Kula Cloth Ambassador, an ambassador for women who hike. She's also Wilderness Remote First Aid certified, a Boy Scout troop leader. At one point in her hiking career, made her own backpack. She's an avid bike commuter to work and can be found on her own website and social media networking sites as Wandering Pine. Welcome to the podcast, Jen Theisen, known in the hiking community as Wandering Pine.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Okay, we made it through. I made it through it without laughing. So
I didn't.
So listen, I have to, full disclosure here. So here we are. Jen and I are here again, recording. I don't know if the coronavirus gods are against us or what happened. So we recorded our original session right before the outbreak and all that wonderful stuff. And something happened to the recording. So Jen was gracious enough to come back and record again. So thank you again for coming back.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love talking to you. We're friends now.
Yes, we are. Indeed. And we had about 4 or 5 minutes of headphones and mics and all kinds of things going on behind the scenes. So I think it's good to let the listeners know, hey, we just don't hop on here and all of a sudden record a beautiful podcast. There's really a lot to it. So thank you for that. And you look great. You have a great set of headphones now and a good mic. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this. And one of the reasons I originally, I think you and I started connecting is I found your blog, Wandering Pine, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. And you had the coolest blog post on there, and it was about your section hike. And you had a friend of yours say, well, wasn't your section hike kind of really like a through hike with a bunch of 0 days in between? And you're laughing now. And I think all section hikers are laughing now. And then I'm going to read what you said, and we're going to talk about that. Okay. So your friend said that to you, and then you stated, well, yeah, except those 0 days aren't really 0 days. My days are full of work, family activities, volunteering, and just trying to keep up on regular life. In some ways, I think a LASH is harder than a through hike. Every time you hit the trail, your body and mind need to readjust all over again, but it gets easier each time. I'm still not sure I'd enjoy a long through hike. I've never lived on the trail for more than about a week at a time, but a LASH was a great way to get a taste of completing a long trail without being gone for weeks or months. And just so everybody knows, I renamed that the section hiker mantra. So Jen, let's start off before we get into your name, Wandering Pine, how that came about and how you felt when your friend said that.
Yeah, I remember just kind of laughing when she said, I totally knew where she was coming from, but I also thought, yeah, I don't really feel like those are 0 days. I know what a 0 day is, and that's not it.
That's So has your friend seen this?
Oh yeah. She hiked with me. She hiked the purple map with me. That's Fancy Nancy. We'll talk
Oh,
about her
no. Okay,
later.
Fancy Nancy.
Yep.
Thank you, Fancy Nancy, is that it?
That's her name.
Okay, so thank you, Fancy Nancy, for helping Wandering Pine create the section hiker mantra. We really appreciate that. And I want to get right into, I've called it on the first episode that no one's going to hear. You branded yourself literally Wandering Pine with, branding, photos, like all kinds of stuff. So talk to us about Wandering Pine, that awesome trail name, and your branding.
Yeah, well, I made a logo. First, my logo is actually a picture of me jumping in the air with an umbrella in the pine trees because I hike with an umbrella because I have fair skin and that's the best sun protection out there. So anyway, so that's like a little bit of the story behind that. That's really me. But the name Wandering Pine actually came. I wanted to start a blog because I was having all these amazing adventures, and it was just I had a journal, but I really wanted to start kind of writing about it. And the name Wandering Pine comes from it's a nod to my childhood namesake. My family name is Pine, and so I wanted to have kind of a nod to my childhood and my family. But it sort of turned into I don't know how many people start a blog and then that becomes their trail name, but that's what happened. So it was kind of in reverse. Um, so Wandering Pine
I
was
think
the
it's
blog.
great. I love it.
Yeah. And then about my hat. So I have one hat with one logo on it, but I needed a hat for my hike. And I thought, well, why not put my own logo on my own hat? And that's why I wear that with me jumping with an umbrella. But it's kind of like Mary Poppins. It's kind of a hybrid.
I love it. I was like, this chick is cool, man. She has
Yeah.
branded herself. She has put
I am
herself
not
out
that
there.
cool. No, I am not that cool. The only like real trail name that was ever given to me, I have a couple that I won't necessarily say here, but the scouts call me Super Jen, and they gave me that my first year at scout camp because I did everything, and so I still go by Super Jen as well as Wandering Pine.
All right. So at any time, I might call you Wandering Pine, Super Jen, or Jen. Okay.
Or just whatever.
So now that we know that you've written for all section hikers, the section hiker mantra, we know where Wandering Pine, the branded Wandering Pine comes from. Let's get into the Superior hiking trail. So I figured what we might do is give the listeners just basically some logistics about the SHT. So let's start off with, where is the SHT?
Sure. The Superior Hiking Trail is in Minnesota, and it's in northern Minnesota, mostly along the north shore of, that's what we call it, of Lake Superior. So it starts just south of a city called Duluth, and it goes all the way up to the Canadian border, or close to the Canadian border.
So how many miles is the Superior Hiking Trail in total?
It's 310 miles long.
300. Okay. So that's a long trail. That's some miles. So it's not a baby trail, people. It is it's not a national scenic trail, but it is a nationally known trail. So is it traditionally hiked one way or the other, north to south, south to north?
I think people do it both ways. I think most people imagine starting at the south and hiking north. A lot of people talk about it that way, but people do it both ways. For me, it just made logical sense to start literally in the middle of nowhere in the loneliest part of the trail and then hike towards home and civilization. I felt like that was the right way to do it. So I hiked southbound, starting at the northern terminus.
Well, yeah. So you would get closer and closer and closer and start smelling those hot dogs and hamburgers and everything else.
Instead of just ending in the middle of nowhere, like, now what? Call a ride? Like, you're really out there. The northern terminus is pretty remote.
So that northern terminus, now I've heard you kind of start, but you have to hike. Is it a mile back or?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Out and back. Yep. So if you want to actually see, it's called the 270-degree overlook. You can see Canada. It's a high point, and you walk roughly a mile to it, and then back, and then you hike southbound. The Superior Hiking Trail, we mentioned it was 310 miles long, but it is also connected to the North Country Trail. So it is part of the North Country Trail if you know about that trail.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later because I think Jen's got something in her. Well, I've put it in her sights about the North Country Trail, so we'll see where she's at now. So, describe some of the terrain for us. Like what do you what as far as footing and kind of what are you seeing? Is it more of a green tunnel? Are there a lot of views? Describe that for us.
Sure. It's rocks and roots and legendary apocalyptic mud. That's what people
Oh,
like to talk about on the SHT, and very hilly. So I will say, I'll start with the terrain. So I think a lot of people imagine that the Superior Hiking Trail is this nice, flat, kind of easygoing trail because it's in Minnesota, and much of our hiking is flatter compared to mountainous trails. But the Superior Hiking Trail will humble anyone. There are people who hike in the mountains who hike the Superior Hiking Trail because it is all up and down, and very few to almost no switchbacks. You just walk straight up and you walk straight down, and the whole trail is up and down the whole time. And then the lows are really muddy, and the highs you are rewarded with amazing views of Lake Superior. So every step is worth it. And some other highlights of the trail: it is a very green, lush trail, beautiful forests, and a lot of water, plentiful water sources. So you typically don't have to carry a lot of water with you. A lot of creeks. Just about every mile you can get water if you're looking for it. Usually, depending on the season. The wildlife, I've never had any scary encounters with large wildlife, but it is there. But the mushrooms in the fall, I'm not necessarily a mushroom enthusiast, but I've seen mushrooms on the Superior Hiking Trail that I've never seen anywhere else. They're
oh
really
wow.
incredible. So they're very beautiful natural features. And again, for every tough climb you have, most of the times you're rewarded with a beautiful view of Lake Superior. So every climb is worth it. But it is mostly wooded. There are a couple sections of the trail that pop out and you actually walk. There's one section called the Lake Walk where you actually walk along the shore of Lake Superior. It's really tough on the ankles, but it's worth the walk if you're up for it.
And I want to ask you about the mapping system. So, just so everybody knows, not only did Jen brand herself with Wandering Pines, she also has a YouTube channel. I mean, if you are thinking about hiking the Superior Hiking Trail, I'm not kidding. You have got to go to her YouTube channel because the Superior Hiking Trail has color coded maps. So, not only did Jen, hike every mile of these color coded maps, she also created YouTube videos for each set of maps. Am I correct on that?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So talk to us about the mapping system and how that works for the trail.
Sure. So there are six maps, one for each section, that are put out by the Superior Hiking Trail Association, and they're very small, but they've got a lot of information on them. They're pretty much what you need in order to hike the trail. And so they're pocket size. There's 6 different maps. They're all colored differently, kind of for easy identification with, again, just the details. And then there's also a full-length map. I think it's the only full-length map that's out there, and that's drawn by Keith Mermel. And I used both of those maps to plan my trip.
Perfect. So before we get into your it actually started off as a through hike and ended up being a section hike. Tell us some highlights of the trail itself, maybe some towns, some landmarks.
Yeah, I think overall the trail it's very remote, but it's also there are a lot of access points. So I didn't come off the trail, and I don't, hiking off, if you wanted to resupply, you might have to hike a ways to get to your pickup point, but you can get on and off fairly easily, at least on probably the lower half of it, or 2/3. Way up in the northern section, it's a little tougher. But that's one, it's a great trail, really well marked, really well maintained. So I think that's a wonderful feature. Again, being on Lake Superior is an amazing feature of the trail. And then, there's a few little towns, but I wouldn't say it gets busy around state parks, but it's really nice and quiet most of the time. And of course, that is a busy time. Everybody goes in the fall. So if you don't want company, don't go in the fall.
So is that the hiking season for the trail, you would say, is in the fall, pretty much?
I think that's when the weather's the best. There's less bugs. The scenery is amazing. And in Minnesota, the tourism also picks up in the fall. Just people who are not hiking the trail will go up there just because it's so beautiful. But Yeah, but it's a very well maintained and, like I said, very well marked trail. There's blue blazes all along the way, and one of the best marked trails I think I've been on, for sure.
I was going to ask you about the blazes because I know the North Country Trail is blue blazed, correct?
Hmm.
So the Superior Hiking Trail, since the North Country Trail, that trail is part of the North, or is it the other way around? Which one came first?
I don't know which one had a blue blaze first. I don't know, because I think the Superior Hiking Trail was added as a connection to the North Country Trail as it's expanded,
Okay,
but I think it's always had blue blazes. And they both do.
perfect. So now that we know a little more about the Superior Hiking Trail itself, and a little about you and your branding, I'm just, you know what? I just love
Stop
it so
saying
much.
that.
I do. I'm serious. I love it so much. Let's get into, okay, so somewhere back in, I think it was 2019, or maybe before, you had this idea, yes, I'm going to through hike the Superior Hiking Trail. So talk to us a little bit about that, your original decision, and why you came to that decision.
Sure. In 2017, I was, as you mentioned, I'm a bike commuter, and I was pretty newish to bike commuting. But I found myself with almost an hour to and from work just to think about stuff. And, I started thinking about stuff while I was riding my bike. And I had been on the Superior Hiking Trail before, and I knew what it was, but I started to think that I wanted to do something really big. And I got this dream, and I really started to dream and kind of have this wonderful, like, what if, when I was riding my bike to work. And then I couldn't really shake it. And I tried to talk myself out of it every time I started to have those thoughts, because I'm working, I got a family. I can't go like, see you later, everybody. I'm going to go live in the wild, and I'd been on a few backpacking trips, but I'd never taken on anything that big.
I'm laughing because
Um,
when that gets in your gut, when you decide you're gonna, well, you haven't even decided, but when something gets in your gut like that, you're not gonna shake it.
no, and I'm the kind of person that I thought about it for a very long time before I ever even let the words leave my mouth, because I don't mess around with stuff like that, right? So I really
Right,
wanted to make
right.
sure it was really deep in my heart before I even talked about it. And I approached it kind of like a problem to a friend of mine. I said, I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to hike the Superior Hiking Trail. And he had hiked it. And, and I had this plan. I'm like, I want to do it when I retire.
Oh no.
Which is a long time from now, FYI, or maybe I don't know. And then I was like, no, maybe I'll do it when I'm 50. That'd be so cool, like to do this big thing when I turn 50. And then by the time I talked to my friend, I had talked myself down to the age of 47, and I was 45 at the time, and I was like, okay. This is kind of the sad part of the story, but to honor my dad passed away when he was 47 years old. He died pretty young, and I had not been looking forward to turning that age. I just thought it's going to be weird. And so I want to do this thing that's like big and important and makes me feel strong and alive. And so I decided 47. And so I went to my friend who'd hiked the trail, and he just looked at me like, why are you waiting that long? Why would you wait
What?
until you're 40? Do it right now. And he just didn't. He just said, just do it. Like he was very supportive, but he was also kind of like, you're being silly. Just go do it. And so at age 46, we started the trail. I know that was a long answer to your question, but I will say, I do want to say that, like, I speak up for like the section hikers and the people, it's a big decision for anyone to take
Yeah.
any length of hike. If you're gone, especially more than a few days, but a long hike like that, that's not something to be taken lightly. And I wanted to give it the thoughts and that it deserved before I did it.
So now that you thought about it and you contemplated, oh, I might go when I turn 50, I might go when I retire. And your friend says, all right, get it together, Jen, you need to go now. So you spoke it out loud, and and
Yep.
hikers know when you say something out loud, it's like, okay, it's time to start, like, putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak.
Mhm.
So talk to us about your prep. Like, what did you do? Okay, you decided you're going to take on 310 miles of the Superior Hiking Trail. How did you prepare?
Yeah. So, well, you actually hit on something I forgot about. I did write a blog post, and I look back at that sometimes, and it's very short, but I felt like I need to say that I'm going to do this because then I'm holding myself accountable as well. So I did do that, and then I started thinking about every backpacking trip I'd ever been on and how much weight I had carried. And I will never be the person to like tell people how much weight they should carry. If you want to carry a 50-pound backpack, go for it. But I had carried 35 to 45 pounds on a couple of trips that weren't even very long. And I realized like that was something that I really wanted to focus on right away. So I actually sold a bunch of my current heavier gear. I put it up for sale. I sold a couple of sleeping bags, and with that money, I bought an ultralight quilt, and then I bought a used ultralight tent, and I started to kind of whittle on, the big three, right? And one of my biggest items that I had been carrying was my backpack itself. It weighed about 3 pounds with nothing in it, maybe a little
Now,
more.
was that the one that you made? Did you make that
No,
one? No.
no.
Okay.
So
I was
that
just,
was, so, yeah. Sorry, I was not clear on that. Like looking at my existing gear, I started to look at where I could lighten up my load. And my backpack was a really big contributor there. So I bought the Ray Jardine backpack kit. It's been around forever and ever. A lot of people have sewn his packs. And so I bought the kit, and mostly because I don't like to spend a lot of money either. So I don't like to spend a ton of money on gear unless I sell something else to buy it, and,
yeah,
so
that is amazing.
it's like my own circular economy, like
Sell something to buy something,
I do. I really do that, or I make it. And
Yeah.
so I did make my own backpack, and it was a really great experience. I'm glad that I thought about some features that I wanted before I started cutting and actually making it. But even if you have limited sewing experience, his pattern is a lot like more like building something in your garage than sewing a traditional sewing pattern. So it's really made so that anybody can do it. And it was really cool.
I don't know, Jen.
Yeah.
I can go on there right now, and there is no way. No way. There
I don't
is
know.
no way.
It turned out. I will say though, like there was some like really frustrating moments and emergency phone calls to my mom and sister with the sewing machine, and but I got it figured out, and I was really proud of myself. That was a moment where I think that actually contributed like to my confidence level. I'm like, oh my gosh, I made this thing. I hope it doesn't blow up, but it didn't.
So you made a pack, you got some different
Yeah.
gear, you
Yeah.
sold some stuff. Did you do practice hikes or go out and test your gear?
Yeah. So let's see. Started hiking, and through the winter, I'm a avid snowshoer. So that was a really great way for me to train in the winter. And then my bike commute and hiking. My sister and I did training hikes together. We started as soon as the snow melted, did a couple shakedowns, and then, just really thinking through how you should slowly build up your miles and slowly build up your pack weight. We just gradually worked ourselves into it until we did, I think we might have done one 20-miler before our trip, but we gradually worked up to some long miles carrying heavy packs.
And she ended up starting with you as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right. So we got the gear. We're ready to go. You and your sister are going to through hike the Superior Hiking Trail. So let's get into it. So talk us through your starting and kind of what started to unfold, because this was actually going to be your through hike. So talk us through.
Oh yeah, day one. So like we drove up. Grand Marais is kind of the nearest town to the northern terminus. We stayed there overnight because it's a really long drive from my house. And so we got up there early, hit the trail early. Our mom dropped us off. It's almost an hour drive, 45 minutes into like literally the middle of nowhere. So what my mom must have been thinking, she's driving her two adult daughters off to the middle of nowhere and drove away on a dirt road. And but we were totally excited. We ran up to the northern terminus, the 270 overlook. We signed the trail register and we skipped down the trail, all just like full of so much excitement and anticipation and nervous energy. And there was no one around anywhere. And we felt like the only humans for miles, and we were going to go do it. I just remember being really excited. And then about like 2 miles into the hike, I hooked my foot on a root and I went face first into the ground. Like I tripped and did a face plant right away. Like it was not graceful at all with my big backpack on and everything. And I just like, crashed. But I remember laying there for a second and thinking, is this where it ends? Like at mile 2? Really? And then I was fine and I got up, but I just remember like laying there on my stomach for a second, like, yep, this might be it. But no, figured it out. And then the next thing that happened, my sister and I made it a little ways down the trail and we were on this bridge. And I said, this bridge, do you think this is the bridge? I remember saying, do you think this is the bridge in the guidebook that has the hornet's nest?
Oh, God.
It's funny now, but it was not funny then. Bzz, hornets came out. My sister got stung.
Oh, my. And what mile is this? This like.
It was probably like, I don't know, like mile 5 or something. Like it
Okay,
was
so
really,
2, you fall down.
yeah.
5, she gets stung by hornets. Okay,
Right.
not
Yeah.
good.
So we're starting off great, and that hornet sting would come back. It would be a big part of this story later. And but anyway, so we're still just so excited to be on the trail. We're like, we're doing it. And so we kept on hiking. We're going to go to the highest point of the trail and climb this big incline. I like to tell this part of the story because I remember this being the only time I felt fear on the Superior Hiking
Mm.
Trail. 310 miles. The only time I felt fear, it was on that climb up. It was like a clear-cut mountain hill in Minnesota, mountain to us. And I remember stopping, getting a drink of water halfway up the hill and looking out towards the west and seeing the vastness of the Boundary Waters wilderness. And just fear came over me. And I thought, don't go that way. Don't go that way. If you go that way, you'll end up on the news and you'll die. It's horrible. I just looked into the wilderness like, oh, no, we need to stay to the left. Keep the lake on the left. Keep the Boundary Waters on the right. We're going to be fine. But I just remember for a second, and I just like, but I thought that was a good, like, I remember that moment because I think you do have to listen. Like that was kind of a real thing. Like, don't get lost, pay attention. Right. And so, so we trucked along and we made it to our first campsite, had our first night. We were just beat. We were not listening to our bodies. I can speak for myself. Like I was so enthusiastic about being on the trail that I didn't like listen to what my feet were telling me. I had huge blisters on day 1. I had blisters on the balls of my feet. I had blisters underneath my toenails. I just
already.
And I did a lot of hiking. This was not my first rodeo. And I just like, so we had a really rough start. We didn't know it was a rough start. We're like, yay, we're doing it. But we were just like kind of suffering. And the next day we really felt it. And so we started kind of slowing down a little bit and, started to try to get into the rhythm of the trail. And probably by day 2 or 3, my knees were hurting and, we were just starting to kind of feel it a little bit. And I think we had made the mistake of trying to do too many miles at once. And, but you learn that stuff on the trail. So we were learning as we went. And then kind of where things started to turn a little bit, I think it was on day 5 or 6. My knees were starting to feel a little better. My appetite was kicking in. I had heard about this thing called trail legs that you get, I was like, I think I'm getting my legs, and my sister was, she didn't want me to know how bad she felt. She was feeling worse. Her ankle was really swollen. It was starting to affect her mobility. Even almost a week after that hornet sting, it was spreading.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize how bad it was. It was bad. And her, and then her, just metabolism, she started to kind of degrade and not feel good. So our last day on the trail, we decided it was our dad's birthday. And we're like, we're going to do 20 for dad.
Hey,
so we hiked 20 miles over the Sawtooth, which is like, I think it's 6 mountains, 6 hills, 6 big, it's a big day. And
that was a big decision.
Yeah, but we were both on board with it. It wasn't, we had a choice and we were both on board with it. But that was the day that just kind of, we went out with a bang for sure. That was the day that, we did 20 miles. And then as the day kind of wound down, we weren't feeling too good.
So is that when, I mean, obviously, the story goes, hey, you started off, with this big enthusiasm, you're going to through hike the trail. Is that when you guys decided, okay, we're going to have to get off trail, go back and regroup kind of thing? And it was like it was a group decision for you. I mean, because there was two of you.
Yeah, and so that was the hard conversation. We stopped at Temperance River. There's a state park. We were going to go to the next backpacking site, and we decided to stay at the state park. We're like, you know what? Let's stay here. Let's get a shower. Let's just kind of like, that was a really big day. And, and we've hiked 100 miles. And once we stopped, we had that conversation, and my sister, just really told me how bad she was feeling. And then I was really worried about her. And then we talked about maybe me going on solo and someone picking her up, or just all this logistic stuff of having to, and I just didn't feel right about any of that. And then we looked at the forecast and we saw we were going into a more remote section of the trail that would have been harder to do an evac if she got worse. We were kind of going back in, so we considered that, and it was a much harder terrain as well. And then the weather, we were supposed to get like a week straight of rain and like 40 degrees, and I was like,
wow.
Yeah, that actually was pretty convincing when I saw that. I just thought, yeah, we're both a little beat up, and I'm not a fair weather hiker. I mean, I don't like being cold. No one does, but I felt like we would be walking into a dangerous situation. And so, we just kind of settled that, hey, we hiked a solid 100 miles and look at us. We did it. And we were good with that, So we called my oldest son, and he picked up his aunt, and his mom drove 4 hours or so to come rescue us the next morning. And and I just thought that was the end of my hike.
So let's fast forward a little bit and say, okay, so you got off the trail.
Yep.
And you had to make, that's, no matter what anybody said, that's tough decisions.
Yep.
Very tough decisions. And I know what would happen to me. And it's happened to me where I've had to come home when I didn't want to, and it was out of my control. So something happened, and I don't want to call it trail depression, but you may have gotten a form of trail depression. And then a light bulb came on. So talk to us about how you were feeling after that. And then, when that light bulb moment came on that said, hey, I might be able to go back out here and kind of finish this up. So talk us through that.
Sure. Yeah. I went right back to work the Monday after we came off the trail, and I tried to put on a brave face.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then it took me about 3 months to recover physically and kind of emotionally. I mean, I wasn't like depressed, but I was really disappointed. And, and I think I worked through that. And right around that time, around the first of the next year, my friend Fancy Nancy was planning a trip with her.
Fancy Nancy, she's back.
Yeah, with her crew, the Blister Sisters. You want to talk about branding? Fancy Nancy and the Blister Sisters. They're way cooler than me. And anyway, they were going to do their annual like girls trip on the SHT, and I just kind of invited myself. I'm like, can I go with you guys? Because I had still thought all this time, I had thought, this is a 310-mile journey. I had kind of thought in my mind, like, I'm going to start at the top again and then go again. Like, I hadn't really thought of this hike in sections. And I still hadn't when I invited myself on their trip. But I made myself an honorary blister sister. I asked if I could go.
Well, you had blisters on your feet the first day, so like, you are a blister sister.
I was initiated. Yeah. So Nancy says, well, hey, what if we the Blister Sisters only want to do like a 3-day. What if we extend a little, and then we could do a whole section? The whole purple section would be done. And I was like, what? What is this craziness you speak of? Finishing a section. No, but so I was like, I'm in, And so actually, yeah, that was a pivotal moment. Hiking the purple map, actually. It was the first time I really had referred to the trail by a color. I was like, I had just hiked the burgundy map and the green map. Now I got the purple map. And I started thinking about it as these sections for the very first time. And finishing that section with the Blister Sisters and Fancy Nancy, it put me at the halfway mark. And it really just ignited, it really encouraged me and made me feel like I was accomplishing my dream. And it wasn't just about the miles, but it was about like, wow, I can actually do this. I don't know why I never thought of it that way before. It's really kind of silly that I didn't, but I hadn't. I had always thought of this. It's like eating an elephant, they say, if you ever wanted to eat an elephant, I guess you're supposed to do it one bite at a time. I don't ever want to eat an elephant, but like, I guess if you're going to, you can hike the Superior Hiking Trail one section at a time. Imagine that.
So how did that feel in your mind to go from, completing the trail from point A to point B to literally just completing the trail? Because it's two different things.
Right.
So how's that? Yeah.
I got so excited. I realized I learned from my first hike, just focusing so much on the miles and getting it done in a certain amount of time and having to meet these, checkpoints and stuff, I enjoyed it so much more. And then, of course, right before the trip, on the purple map, I started thinking about the brown map, and then I started thinking about the teal map. So I started to kind of think about the trail differently. And then I became obsessed. So, let's see, 2 weeks after we finished the purple map, I was back out doing 60 miles on the brown map. And then 2.5 weeks, or a little less than 2 weeks after that, I was back on the trail doing the blue map. And so I live like 4 hours away from this trail. It's not in my backyard. And I have to go home and do all the, section hiker mantra things. But it really seemed possible, and it gave me hope. And I will also say that as much as I loved being on the trail with my sister, a whole new experience unlocked before my eyes, where I had people that I never would have hiked with that I got to share this journey with. And that actually makes me feel really emotional thinking about it, because it was such a beautiful experience to be able to have that sense of community and friendship with many people instead of just one or just myself.
And I can tell by your face, and, I'm starting to say this on the podcast now because it's so amazing to, see the people I'm interviewing, because I could just tell, in your body language and in your face, like, this was an amazing thing for you. And I think it's awesome. And when you were talking about your friends just now and being able to hike with different people, wow, that was amazing.
I made bonds on the trail that I would not have made any other way. Yeah. And I'm really grateful for that.
So total days, not consecutive days, but total days was 23 on the trail. Is that right?
Yep, about that.
So let's talk about, I think you've painted a really good picture of, from the beginning, what your intentions were to making that, Ray Jardine pack, selling gear, getting out there. Things happen on the trail all the time. And, bouncing back and realizing there's more than one way to complete a trail, which is amazing. And so talk to us about that last day when you knew you were going to finish the trail.
Yeah, I was really excited. It was kind of a funny day, because I actually did the trail. I saved that last little tail where it's kind of an out and back to the southern terminus, kind of like the northern terminus. It's a lot longer, but I had driven down with a couple of friends from roughly the middle of the trail. And so we kind of finished the teal map, and then we drove all the way down to the bottom. And, hiking out there, I was just filled with so many different emotions. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen when I saw that sign. I didn't know, I imagined this dramatic movie where you fall to your knees and then, I don't know, I just kind of stared at it like, is this really happening? But that last day, just that feeling of accomplishment and being able to finish what I started and to reach my dream. It was really great. And then we always go to the Duluth Grill and I always go have fish tacos. And so we ran right out of there as fast as we could and went to the Duluth Grill and had fish tacos.
That sounds good right now.
It's amazing. Yeah.
All right. So you finished the hike. Everything is absolutely wonderful. And, one of the things that happens with section hikers is that I'm finding as I'm interviewing people, there's always more. And whether it's local things in your community, doing different things. One of your first, I think when you go on wanderingpine.com, I went to, as I was stalking you, I went to your about me section. And in the first or second paragraph, I can't remember, you said that your goal is you want to adventure, advocate, and share. And I've actually renamed the episode Adventure, Advocate, and Share because not only did you section hike the Superior Hiking Trail, you also have multiple things going on. And I want to talk about those things. And Jen is smiling again. So I think she's happy that I found this. So you're really big into the 52 Hike Challenge. I want to talk about what's going on currently with the North Country Trail 100 patch. Mm-hmm. And then the Granite Gear Groundskeeper, being an ambassador for them and the women who hike. So let's start off with that 52 Hike Challenge because you took that to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I did. Well, 52 Hike Challenge, if you're not familiar with it, it's a community that encourages people to literally hike 52 times a year. And so I saw that as a really great way to build a regular hiking discipline or practice, right? And a hike can be anything you want it to be. So, of course, I had my own definition and adjusted that. And I really used that as my training plan.
And you're going to tell them what the adjustment was. It wasn't just 52 hikes. She doubled it, 104.
I did, but my Superior Hiking Trail counted towards that. Well, the first year, so this will be my fourth year participating. And actually, the year of my through hike, I always try to do something really big for Hike 52. And my Superior Hiking Trail through hike was supposed to be my 52nd hike of the year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a big.
Well, you just added 23 more days to that. That's all.
I did. So that's kind of how that year got a little beyond 52. And then last year, because I was training for my phase 2 of the Superior Hiking Trail, and then also I just hike a lot. Well, I shouldn't say that. I hike a couple times a week. That would be 104.
Jen, you hike a lot.
Hike a lot. I just thought, wow, I think I got to like 70 and I thought, I bet I could double this baby. And so, I just kept on going.
So if anybody needs anything to do in between their section hikes, it's the 52 Hike Challenge. It's awesome. Yeah. It's amazing. And anytime you go hike, it counts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to decide. There's no hike police that tell you if it's a hike or not. You're the hike police.
That's right. Yourself. You're the hike police yourself.
Yeah, you are.
So let's talk about this North Country Trail 100. And I know when you complete 100 miles on the North Country Trail, you get a patch, and you love patches, right?
I do. I'm a patch collector. I love patches. Yeah.
And I need a picture of your pack so I could put all those patches, the picture of your pack out there with the patches.
Deal.
So we are in the midst of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and some really cool stuff has gone on with obtaining that patch now. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I had some plans to hike 100 to 150 miles on the North Country Trail. That was actually the big plan for 2020 in Wandering Pine Land. And then COVID-19 threw a big wrench into that. And I had heard on April 1st that the North Country Trail was honoring all miles hiked, whether it be on a treadmill in your neighborhood, but all miles would count for the month of April towards the North Country Trail 100-mile challenge patch, because the North Country Trail was closed at the time, and I think it might still currently be closed. Then they extended it into May as well. So, but I challenged myself in April to go ahead and hike 100 miles, and I did 117 miles in my neighborhood, and I walked through cemeteries. I walked all over the place in April, and it felt good, like to be able to earn that, and I might still be able to go on the North Country Trail this year, and that would be great. But it was really cool of them to do that and encourage people to hike at home safely and still work towards a goal like that. I applaud them.
And you do realize, Jen, when you get on the North Country Trail, you're going to be an NCT section hiker. You do realize that, right?
Yeah. Okay. I know I laugh because, well, for the listeners, that was what happened on the last podcast. Is Julie put that thought in my head that
yes,
that now, and I'm mulling it over. I mean, it's the longest trail of all the long trails, right? Isn't it?
Yep, 4,600 miles.
At least I think I told you this last time too. At least if I could say I hiked every mile in Minnesota, that would be pretty cool. And I think
that'd be awesome.
It might be almost 800 miles. I have to double check those numbers, so don't yell at me if that's wrong. But
No, I have a
it's a
feeling some
lot.
things are going to happen over the next couple years. I have a feeling. So yes, so obtaining that patch in the North Country Trail, altering that, amazing, amazing for people to still be able to do that.
Yeah.
Which leads me to, not only have you hiked in your neighborhood through cemeteries, all different places, you're also a Granite Gear groundskeeper. And while you're doing that, you're picking up garbage and you're picking
Yeah.
up trash that people leave behind. So talk to us about being a Granite Gear groundskeeper.
Yeah. It's a really great program. I'm really lucky to be a part of the program for the second year now. I'm what they call a legacy groundskeeper. So my first year was last year. I picked up trash on the SHT and all around, and then did it again this year. And the group, I think we've got a little over 30 people. Again, I have to double check my numbers, sorry. But we've got a big group of people who are committed to leaving it better. And really, it's as simple as that. People who are committed to picking up trash on the trails. And right now there's some additional safety measures we take with COVID-19 if we are picking up trash. But really just the goal is to leave it better than we found it and to inspire others. And for me, a simple act like picking up trash has really even had a profound impact on my own life and the trash that I make and leaves my house and the decisions I make about what I buy and how much packaging. And so really that's how it works, is that the ripple effect, the small things like picking up that little granola bar wrapper corner on the trail. We pick all that up, and because it all matters and it all adds up. So yeah, and it's, again, Granite Gear created this great program. It's inspired by the Packing It Out team. They cleaned, I think, over 1,000 pounds up off the AT originally, and so it's just got a really great foundation, really great group.
Wow. And you guys
Yeah.
measure, or not measure, you weigh your
Oh yeah.
trash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of the deal, is we weigh our trash, and then we have a trash tally that we share how many thousands of pounds have been cleaned up. It's a lot.
Wow. And every time I see a picture, I'm like, it just inspires me more and more. Like you said, to pick up that little piece of trash that's in the corner under a rock and you could just see a little bit of it. It's like, it's inspired me to,
Oh, good.
continue to pick up trash on wherever I'm at, whether I'm on a trail or not. It's like, just pick it up.
Yeah. I'm
Kind of
glad to hear
thing.
that.
So
I think having a
yeah.
positive attitude too. Like I don't find myself, like, once in a while I see something, I'm like, what? Like, why is that there?
Yeah.
But usually just, kind of keeping a positive attitude, leaving it better is what it's all about.
And you're also, okay, so for the women out there, well, men too, I guess, you're also a Kula cloth ambassador. And we won't
Yes.
go way into the details of that, but it's a cloth that women need when they hike on the trail. And you are also, it's a pee rag, people, is what it is.
It's for anybody who needs a pee rag.
That's right. That's right. KulaCloth.com. I'm serious. You got to look it up. I mean, if you don't have one, you really need to get one. And you're also part of Women Who Hike, which is a national women's hiking group. And you do, I don't know what's happening now with COVID-19,
Yeah.
but you do lead hikes and things like that.
Yeah, I'm a co-ambassador with my buddy Ruth, and we lead the Minnesota group. And right now, again, it is in all 50 states. And right now, people are hiking individually, and we have an amazing active Facebook group. I would encourage you, anyone listening, if you're looking for a hiking buddy, the Facebook groups are a great way to connect. And then when we're up and running in the fall, hopefully with group hikes, you can join us. But for this summer, we're encouraging people to hike on their own and socially distance.
And I've got to say one thing to the listeners, because I'm not kidding. They have got to look this up. So over COVID-19, it's like Zoom became this, all encompassing, all of a sudden Zoom ruled all of our lives, but it was really a way for hiking community, local communities, churches, for people to connect, while we were staying at home. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, the most phenomenal thing that I saw on Zoom was Jen playing the violin with the owner of Kula Cloth. I mean, I just could not stop watching it. I just could not. And I feel like, is it still out on your Instagram?
It is. And yeah, it's Anastasia Allison. She's amazing. She's just a really inspiring person. And she plays the violin, and so do I. And I was getting a song ready for Easter service. And I always wanted to play violin with her, and she lives in Washington and I live in Minnesota. And so yeah, through the magic of technology, we played this duet together, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I loved
It was
it.
phenomenal. So you guys put out the one with you two, and then for the service, I think a gentleman was added, and was it another lady or another gentleman? So there were 4 of you, right?
Yeah, they spliced like all of us musicians together, and then at my church, they just played this. It would be like if Zoom didn't cut out other people's sound. It had the appearance of like a screen split into separate musicians all playing together, and that was really cool. I loved
It
it.
was really cool. So how you guys are going to be able to find all these wonderful things that Wandering Pine, I mean, pretty much your Wandering Pine on Instagram, Facebook, wanderingpine.com. I know that video's out there somewhere on your Facebook. I mean, people, you have got to go watch that. I'm not kidding. Phenomenal.
You're too
So
kind.
Jen, yeah, I'm really not kidding. I mean, I was like, we have got to have an all call for hikers to start showing their other talents. Like, are you musicians? Are you poets? Like, what's happening? So, I mean, I was on like this, oh my God, I don't have another talent, but if I did, I would be.
I know. I think my greenhouse, my garden is probably more popular on my Instagram than my hiking right now because I'm doing more of that.
And that's phenomenal.
It's so
So
cool. It's fun.
I feel like you and I could talk for another 3 hours, really.
Easily.
But easily. But 100% congratulations on finishing the Superior Hiking Trail.
Thank you.
I mean, making your own pack from a website. I mean, come on now. And then I got one more question for you before you read. So, what is something that you failed at, Jen, and learned from while hiking?
Oh man, there's so many. One thing I wish, there's so many things, but I was just thinking of this today. I wish I had read the book Fixing Your Feet before I hiked on the trail instead of after I hiked the trail. I did not take care of my feet for the first 100 miles. And so, and I will also say, sorry, I have multiple answers, but that first 100 miles really taught me to listen to my body and to not be all about the miles. It sounds cheesy, but think more about the smiles than the miles. You know, like I was really focused on the miles and this achievement mentality instead of putting a lot of pressure on myself. And so, every time I hiked a section, more of that lifted off. And I really learned how to truly enjoy what I was doing and really soak it in. So, and that carried through into other parts of my life.
And there is no better way to close that out. I mean, that's perfect. So I think now we've come to the point in the podcast where Wandering Pine is going to sign off for us by reading her own journal entry, statement, or quote that will inspire us all to keep hiking section by section.
I wrote this right after hiking a very brutal section of the Brown Map. There will be mud. There will be rain. There will be roadwalks. There will be nasty feet. But there will be beauty. There will be sunshine. There will be refining strength. And your heart may explode with joy when you're done.
Like I said, no better way to end this episode in your interview, Jen. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's always so fun to talk to you. So great.
Let's
Thank
hope
you
we
for
don't have
having
to
me.
do this again. And I mean this in the nicest way.
I wouldn't be that sad if we had to do it again.
That just means I'm going to, yes, I'm going to have you on again as your section hiking the North Country Trail.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jen, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Jen, for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey on the Superior Hiking Trail. I hate the fact that you got really bad blisters and that your sister got stung by a hornet, but I sure am glad you are part of our section hiker family. I think we can all take a cue from Jen by adventuring, advocating, and sharing our own adventures. If you heard last week's episode, you will remember I mentioned I will be heading out to the Appalachian Trail to continue working on my second section hike. I am taking a cue from Mighty Blue and will be recording my summer hike and sharing it with all of you in real time, so to speak, here on the podcast starting Saturday, June 20th. I hope to share with you the life of a section hiker, including how I prep to go out on a section hike, logistics, gear, what's happening on the trail, and how I am getting around responsibly. My section hike this summer will continue my path of not being traditional. I have some hiking in Virginia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Massachusetts with a total of about 31 hiking days to then have everything on the trail completed again for a second time, with the exception of New Hampshire and Maine. I am hoping in the summer of 2021 to be able to complete New Hampshire and Maine once again. I look forward to sharing this summer's section hike with all of you starting next week right here on the podcast. You can follow along on Instagram as well at Jester Hikes. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to reach out to me, you can always email me at jesternc2212@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram at Jester Hikes. And as always, happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.